Hello and welcome to the A New You TV show. I am your host, Ivy Caldwell, and today I have a special guest, and her name is Keisha Sando. I'm going to read you her bio, and then I will welcome her to the show, and we will get a conversation started on the different steps or processes of grief. All right, so we're going to be in forward to a good conversation on today. Keisha J. Sando has her Master Arts degree in licensed mental health counseling, is a New York-based licensed mental health counselor with 20 plus years of experience in the mental health field. She received her undergraduate degree in psychology from Eastern University and her master's in counseling psychology from Bowie State University. Kia is the owner of the group practice called Peace Filled Mental Health Counseling Services based out of Brooklyn, New York. Keisha is the founder of Authentic Profitable Practice, where she coaches and teaches therapists how to start and run a successful therapy practice. She is the co author of What's Next, a guide to dealing with grief after a loss, letting go of baby. Wow. She is a certified integrative mental health professional. She is also a trained trauma therapist. Keisha is currently writing a book to help people who are experiencing anxiety and depression using therapeutic techniques along with holy scriptures to walk in freedom. Keisha is also a part of a collaborative project called Out of the Shadows, which is a book that speaks on entrepreneurs' experience with anxiety and depression and the ways they continue to preserve and show up for themselves as well as in their business. Keisha, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Amen. Amen. I am so glad that you are here on today to discuss this very important topic because, over the past 2 years, uh, everyone has been affected by death and grief. Uh, whether it's a family member, a coworker, associates, we all have been affected. So this is a very important topic that needs to be discussed, and the floor is yours.
Right. So you're right. Definitely over the last 2 years, it's been even rough. And it's not to say that we have not experienced any type of trauma or grief prior to the pandemic, but I think what makes this such a significant thing is just the topic of a pandemic just represents or indicates that a lot of people are experiencing something very similar. And so I think right now, even more than before, it's so important for us to be talking about these things, because a lot of people prior to the pandemic were not necessarily experiencing these specific type of symptoms or having these issues that they didn't have before. And now all of a sudden these events are happening, and there are many people that just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy to be able to talk about this topic and to provide whatever insight or information I can to help all of us, because all of us have been touched in some way or another regarding
Yes,
this
yes, yes.
topic. Um, so one of the biggest things that I've noticed in terms of just like the pandemic is that many people are experiencing these two things. Number one, depression, and then number two, anxiety. So when you look at those two things, again, these are different topics that many people have experienced way before the pandemic, but it's becoming more prevalent. So even I would say even probably bigger, the first thing that I noticed was people that were just dealing with depression,
Mm,
because you have a lot of isolation.
yeah,
People, we weren't able to be in social environments. We weren't, before. Now we have like this whole Zoom era where Zoom just kind of took off. So we're
yeah.
like, what is this? And how do we still stay connected to each other, when we're not able to see each other face to face? And so a lot of people struggled with that.
Yeah,
it's like being able to or not being able to connect in that way. How do you find like this new way of living, that new way of connecting, the new way of being, without that personal contact? And
Yeah.
I think honestly, a lot of us probably didn't realize that we really thrive off of that
Yeah.
one-on-one connection. And I think whenever you're so used to doing something in a certain way, and then there's this major shift
Hmm.
because of this event that happens, that initially would just kind of throw us into a shock,
Yeah.
just because it's something completely new, and we're like, what is this? How do we deal with it? And then we try to go back to our normal way of coping,
Hmm.
and then sometimes when that way of coping doesn't work, then that can kind of send us into this depression, because now we're disappointed with the way that things are happening. We're disappointed with the way we're responding to what's happening. We feel like there's like a lack of hope, a lack of just like of a future. Basically, we
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
what's going to happen,
Yeah.
and I've found that a lot of people, because of those particular things, have gone into those feelings, or even more so of depression. So that's definitely one thing, and I could talk about it later if you want to, in terms of like what are some of those symptoms.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
so yeah, do you want to go into that now, or?
no, I was just thinking about like when the pandemic first started, though, where I had to put the mask on
Mm-hmm,
and to go
mm-hmm.
to the grocery store. And I'm like, God, this is not normal. It just didn't feel right at all.
Right.
And it does lead to that isolation because now you can't touch. And at my church, it's like we used to have like summer picnics, go over to one another's homes to fellowship, play volleyball and just hang out and have barbecues. But now you had to
Mm-hmm.
isolate, you know, that can lead to depression, especially when you're used to having that human touch. And that's the way we were created.
Right. Yep. Yep, it was a big shocker, I think, for many of us, unless you were one of those people that were, I would say, on the side of being more of an introvert, and
Yeah.
probably didn't really like, because you do have some of those people too. On
Yeah.
that side, they're like, I'm fine with not engaging or not having to see people, because I love being in the home or whatever the case is. So of course we know that reality is that it didn't hit everyone the
Hmm.
same way, but it did hit a lot of people in that way.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, yes.
Yeah. So I would say that the next thing that I noticed as well was dealing with anxiety.
Hmm.
Now, this was probably even more so. We saw this initially more so than the depression, because we're talking about fear.
Hmm.
Everybody is like, okay, what is this? Like when you think about fear or even like anxiety, it's like the fear of the unknown.
Yes.
You don't know what's going to happen. And so,
Right.
like in the beginning, it was a lot of us that were dealing with that unknown. Like they're talking first, it came from, something where we're just putting on our mask.
Mhm.
Well, actually, no, initially it was we don't need to wear masks.
Right,
We
right,
came from
right.
that. So, like, this is going to be something where the kids are going to be out of school for like 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden, they'll go back. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden now they're not going back. Now we
Mhm.
have to wear masks. Then you started to hear the increase in people, being hospitalized and then eventually passing away. And then those numbers are increasing. Anybody in their right mind is going to start to feel some sense of anxiety
Yeah,
regarding that, because we don't know what's happening, how it's happening so quickly.
yeah.
And again, it's like that fear of the unknown. And what happens with anxiety is that when we feel like we don't have control
Mm.
over something, that's where the anxiety starts to creep in. And I
Yeah.
mean, we can talk about that from the pandemic, just as long as we could talk about it with any other topic, when any type of situation that happens in our lives where we feel like we don't have control over it, we start to become anxious, because
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
well, what do I do? What do I say? Or what's going to happen with them? And then of course, if you have people that you care for, you
Mhm.
have, especially with the pandemic, they were talking about people that were more at risk than
Yeah.
other people. So
Mhm.
then you start to be concerned about that. So honestly, like everybody had a right to be anxious, to be
Yeah,
nervous,
yeah.
to be
How do you
afraid.
combat that anxiousness though?
Exactly. So, there's many things. I think the first thing is just really to recognize all those things that I just said in terms of like the things that you're thinking.
Hmm.
In terms of anxiety, it could be the way you think, and it could also be the way you feel. So that's the first part that people need to understand even before you start thinking about, well, what can I do about it?
Hmm.
Because I'm gonna give you an example. So when people feel anxious, they can feel nervousness or like a sickness in their stomach. They can start to feel their heart racing. They
Hmm.
can feel out of breath. They
Yeah.
can have clammy hands. So depending on what type of symptoms, you may want to use certain techniques
Yeah.
for reducing anxiety. But I would say there are certain techniques that you can use that overall, no matter what type of physical sensations you have as a result of anxiety, those things can help to reduce it. So I could talk
Mhm.
about a little bit of those things.
Yes.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
honestly, the one that I always tell people about, and I feel like it's the best technique, is a breathing technique.
Mm.
And I mean, a lot of people, it's like kind of stereotypical, just breathe. But there's important things that you can think about when it comes down to breathing techniques. The first thing is that knowing that when we have our breath under control, we're breathing
Mm.
correctly, that's going to help us not only to relax physically, but it sends it gives us the oxygen in our brain that we need to think clearly, to
Yeah.
make good decisions as well. So the breathing technique is going to help us with our brain, and
Mm.
it's also going to help us in our bodies. So,
Okay.
and I like it because it's something that's always with you. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
we have like certain things. We can take a bubble bath, we can read a book. What if you don't have those things with you? You
Yeah.
always have your breath.
Yeah.
And so a breathing technique is definitely something that people can use to help especially when you're in that moment, when you really feel like you're being overwhelmed by
Mm.
anxiety. And one of the techniques that I tend to teach people is just a simple, like, you're going to breathe in for 4 seconds, you pause for 2 seconds, and then you can exhale for 6 seconds. And
Mm.
normally when you're breathing in through your nose, and then you're going to exhale through your mouth.
Yeah.
Now, I would kind of put it out there that sometimes people that have some trouble breathing, they may not be able to breathe in through their nose. And I also know that there's some people that cannot really breathe through their nose. So I do want to say that
Mm.
I acknowledge that. So just kind of
Wow.
try to do the best that you can. As well as, if you have a little bit of trouble breathing, you may not want to do that long exhale, because the longer you exhale, you're going to start to you might feel a little bit woozy. It's
Mm.
really helping you to relax a little bit.
Yeah.
So some people even do like breathe in for 4, hold it for 2, exhale for 8. But I think like
Mhm.
a safe way to do it is like on that exhale for 6 seconds. So that's something that I actually teach some of my clients in terms of helping them to relax.
Yeah.
Another thing that I do is positive self-talk.
Hmm.
That's also something that you always have with you, but you may have to do a little bit more practice in terms of making sure you have the right things to say when you actually need it. So
Yeah.
I suggest people actually, I go by this therapeutic technique. It's called CBT.
Hmm.
And part of that technique, it really looks at the relationship between the way you think, the way you feel, and the way you behave. And so what I like about it is it really looks at the thought process and looks at the positive versus the negative thoughts. So if we're talking about being anxious about something, specifically with COVID, you can actually kind of write down what are those specific anxious thoughts that you have, and
Yeah.
then you come up with an alternate positive thought. So like,
Mm.
you might be anxious that you may get COVID, which is a possibility because
Yeah.
many people have gotten COVID, right?
Yeah.
But then maybe another but alternate thought could be that, well, even if I hope I don't get COVID, but if I do get COVID, there's at least at this point, there's shots that you can take, there's medication you can take. There's a lot of people that have survived it as well. We know that there are many people that have not, but there are people that have. So you just basically take all the negative thoughts that you have, write it down. You can even do it like on a paper, like straight down the middle.
Yeah.
One, you do your negative, and then the other one, you do your positive. And those positive statements are going to be the things that you want to remember to use. And if you can't really remember it in the moment, write it down, put it on the index card, something like that, that can help
Yeah.
you to, really be in a moment to get yourself grounded.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. So
yeah.
that's the mental side of it. But then you have the spiritual side as well. And it's like some scriptures are popping in my mind about be anxious for nothing and
Hmm.
cast
Hmm.
all your cares upon the Lord because he cares for you. And God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of
Hmm.
power, love, and a sound mind. So we can incorporate the two. Those
Exactly.
positive affirmations, though, those are key as well.
Hmm. Yeah, that I'm glad you brought that up, but because um within the scriptures, it gives us this like outline really
Mhm.
of what we need to do.
Right.
So definitely if we're working by, our faith, if we have a belief in God, we know that God has already laid out all these different things for us. And he told us to change our mind, to
Yeah.
think on these things, the things
Yeah.
that are good, things that
Yeah.
of good report,
Right. Right. Right.
the things that are true, all of those different things.
Yeah.
So you could take that same concept and write those things down.
Yeah.
So you could use like general basic positive self statements, and then
Mhm.
you can also integrate those positive scriptures, the
Yeah.
scriptures that relate to those things as well. And
Yeah.
that would help you even more so, because when you realize that, especially when we look at incorporating our faith and believing in God, that makes it to me even easier to hold on to, because you recognize that your strength and your ability to
Mhm.
get through that thing that you're going through is not just about yourself. It's actually you're relying on God. So if
Yeah.
you believe in God, then you know that God is going to provide those things just like he's done it before. So why would he not do it here?
Amen. Amen.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes. I think it's just like normal for people because we like to tend to think on the negative side
Mhm. Mhm.
instead of the positive. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. I think
Yeah.
it's hard sometimes for many of us to think of the positive things, because of the fact that we're looking at everything that we feel like didn't go right in the past.
Mm.
Um, Certain things may cause us to lose trust,
Yeah.
whether it's trust in ourselves, or maybe it could even be trusted. We felt like things cause us to lose trust in God. It could
Yeah.
be those things as well.
Hmm.
And then that leads to the disappointment, and then that
Yeah.
causes us to lose faith. So we
Mhm.
have to like work on shifting, like that paradigm shift, shifting all those things so that we begin to believe again, and we can
Yeah.
hold on to those things. And then, like the scripture says, be anxious for nothing. But we
Yeah.
have to put those things in place first. We can't just wake up and say, like, you know what, I'm just gonna not be anxious today. Like, that would be lovely. And I do believe that we should continue saying those things to
Yeah.
ourselves, but we have to put in the work as well.
Put in the practice. Put it
Hmm.
in. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So just so we talked about depression, and we also talked about anxiety. I think maybe talk a little bit about the symptoms of depression as well. Like, how do you even recognize depression? So we talked a little bit about what that looks like with anxiety. So definitely with depression, one of the ways that you definitely would know is a couple of things. Um, have you changed the way that you are motivated in terms of activities?
Hmm.
So let's say I'm one that normally likes to go out with my friends, or I like to go shopping, or I'm always out and about. If I
Yeah.
notice that, my friends are now calling me, asking me, hey, where are you? What's going on? We haven't heard from you. You haven't called me. You haven't texted
Hmm.
me.
Hmm.
That might be a sign that maybe something is not right. Something is kind of unusual. You can also look at your appetite. Are you eating the right way, or eating normally, whatever
Yeah.
your normal appetite will look like? Have things changed with that? And that could be an increase in your diet, or increase in your appetite, as well as a decrease in your
Mm.
appetite. Because some people eat more when they're stressed or
Yeah.
depressed, and some people eat less.
Yeah.
So it just really depends on what is normal or abnormal for yourself. You can also look at lack of sleeping.
Hmm.
The same thing with that back and forth. It could also be sleeping too much too.
Mm.
Those could be signs that you are depressed. And what I want to also point out is that a lot of people don't realize that people that are depressed, sometimes it looks like anger.
Mm.
So the person is just like, I'm just this, I don't know what's going on with that person. They're just so angry and frustrated. They're so
Yeah.
irritable all the time. That could actually be a sign that the person might be depressed.
So they're snapping at you. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Wow.
like we just look at it as the person is just snapping on us. But has anybody asked like what's really going on? Why are they snapping at us?
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
going on? Have you also noticed that that person is so irritable, has not been calling anybody? They're
Mm.
not going out anymore. They're not doing the things they used to do. They're not showing up at these same places. They might be depressed.
Yeah.
So, there's those are some things that you can definitely, of course a lot more, but those are like some good signs to look at to
Yeah.
determine if the person may be depressed. And of course, if you're having like suicidal ideations or homicidal ideation, things like that, that's definitely a concern.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
but I would say also with that, just like with the symptoms of depression and the techniques you can use, there's also some techniques that you can use for depression as well.
Yeah, but like, what if you are like, you really don't have like a big circle, no one is really around, and you find yourself in this place of being depressed? It's like, I know
Mhm.
it's important to speak up, but how do you speak up?
When you say speak up, you mean like actually
Ask for
tell
help.
somebody like
Yes,
what's going
yes,
on?
yes.
So, I mean, that's actually a really good question because a lot of times people are just so into their own self, especially when you're depressed. You might be just so into like your own self, your own thoughts that you don't know how to even express what you're going through, let alone ask somebody like for help about it. So one of the things I would definitely say, there's a couple of things I'm thinking of. Number one, I would say, look at your support system, and there's just some people within our friend group, our family group, that even if we don't have to say a word and they know something is not right.
Pay attention.
So yeah, so just if you're thoughtful, as a person that may be feeling depressed, of course you're still going to have to do that work, but it might just be like calling the person, and
Mhm.
they would, even if you're talking like what you would think would be normally, that person, if they know you, will probably know that something's not right,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
at least they can ask the questions to help you to get it out, because sometimes when people are really depressed, they don't have the energy to
yeah.
come up with the words to
Oh,
say how they're
wow.
feeling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because I think about that young lady. I don't know if she was in New York or not, but the young lady that killed herself, jumped off the top of the building or something like that.
Yes,
And
yes,
people,
I know what you're
and
talking
people are
about.
like shocked. You don't
Hmm.
have a clue. So it's very important that we pay attention to our loved ones and those
Of
that we are
course.
close to. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. From the other side of it, I mean, a lot of what we're talking about right now is like if you're experiencing it, but yes, look out for those the same things. If you have someone that's close to you and you notice that something is not right, it may not be right.
Yeah.
And they may not have the strength, the words,
Mm,
or just the energy to say it,
mm,
or they may not know what to do. Like, remember, we talked about anxiety and even with the brain. And when you're feeling super anxious, like you may not really be able to think clearly
mhm, mhm.
about whatever it is you need. The same thing can happen with depression. It may not be the same like physical sensations, but when you're depressed, like your thoughts may not be rational. So
Mm,
you're coming up with all of these thoughts about what you don't have or what your life looks like, but someone on the outside may see it as completely different.
yeah.
So, it's good to to at least have a support system, even if it's like before something happens. Like
Yeah.
tell your friend, look, if you know that if I don't text you like within a week or so, just give me a call.
Yeah.
Something's probably not right. So that's something else I would suggest too. Like, don't wait until something happens. Like,
Yeah.
talk to your friends and help them to know who you are before these situations are happening, so that if something does happen, you would have a good support system at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. Those thoughts in the mind. What was that book that Joyce Myers wrote? The Battlefield of the
Of the
Mind.
mind. Yeah. Hmm.
We have to check those thoughts that we are having, if they're negative thoughts and they're pulling us away from people.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
Yeah, definitely. That depression and anxiety, especially depression, can make you feel like you're not yourself.
mm,
Like you can look and feel so different.
mm,
And sometimes, a lot of times, people will notice it, but you may not even really notice what's happening. It's
okay.
almost like I've heard people. It's almost like they're in a time warp
Wow. So the
when
person
they're in that.
themselves may not know what's going on.
Yeah, yeah. Or they're
Yeah.
just like, kind of like denying it. Oh, I'm fine. Is it people experience depression in different ways, and then also people go through different cycles of
Yeah.
depression too.
Oh, wow. Hello. Thank you so much to tuning into the A New You show. I hope you enjoyed it to the fullest. I hope that you are being challenged. I have some information for you and how you can support the A New You TV show. You can visit my website, Footprint Enterprises, LLC.com, and you can donate to this great cause to continue to get the gospel out to the nations. You don't want to make a donation? No problem. You know what? I have books. I have books. I have journals. I have a workbook. Go to my website and grab one of those books. Well, you don't want a book? I got you. You want a t-shirt, a mug, or a hoodie? Well, visit my Etsy account, and the name over there is A New You Designs, and grab yourself a t-shirt. I have exposed t-shirts, A New You t-shirts, mugs, and hoodies. Go grab yourself some gear to support this ministry. I am also a transformation life coach. Maybe there's something in your life that you want to transform about you so you can become a new you. Do you have issues with low self-esteem? You need a new mindset. Maybe you want to get yourself a new career. You're not sure what path to take. I will be glad to assist you in that endeavor. My background is helping those expose their truth. Is there something about you you have yet to reveal to the world? Or better yet, deal with personally yourself. You're struggling with it. You don't want to deal with the emotional pain, but baby, let me tell you, you got to go back to that pain so you can uproot it, deal with it, heal from it, and move forward in your life. There is greater for you on the other side of it. There is greater waiting on you. There are people waiting on you. Breakthrough is only a few steps away. You know what? Go to my website, grab a free copy of the course outline to see the steps that I will personally walk you through if you would like to endeavor and go through this process. There's a process, but you can get through it. I will assist you with it. All right, you don't know me. I completely understand that, but you know what? I got you. When you get that free outline course, you will get a follow-up email, and there will be a link. I have a self-paced online course that you can take in the privacy of your own home at your own leisure to start this process. I thank you for tuning in to the show once again. I thank you for the support. Have a wonderful day and God bless you. Bye-bye.